Hey guys, I'm E-House.
What's up, Andre?
And today we are on another episode of SpeedSim. This one filmed 2 weeks after the last one. Time warp. Anyways, we are talking about an idea that was actually proposed by our good friend Kyle, who we actually hate.
Secretly.
Yeah, he's done a few videos for us. He kind of sucks. We don't really like him. Someone said he's their favorite Gun Gamers member, which is...
What?
You're wrong. You're wrong. Kyle's the worst.
No, we love Kyle.
We love you, Kyle, but not really. So we're going to talk about different types of red dots, actually, because I think a lot of people think, oh, a red dot is a red dot is a red dot, and don't really think about the fact that actually, I would posit that there's like 5 major categories of red dot, and then within those, there's all the different types.
Right.
So let's start off with the big boy. There's like the tube-style red dot.
More like your Aimpoint Q3 style.
Yeah, like your Comp M4s and your Aimpoint M3s, like you just said. This is a Vortex Strike Fire, which is kind of a half clone-ish of an Aimpoint style, but it's got its own unique controls and everything. This is a bigger tube-style red dot. There's a million different variations of these. You can get them at all kinds of different price points.
All sorts of different manufacturers. You can go airsoft or you can go real steel.
Yeah, I have a Vortex because I got a good deal on it from Kyle, who I still hate.
Kyle?
So the advantage with these is these are tough.
Yes.
Like these big tube-style red dot sights.
And that one's pretty bulky.
Yeah, they're big, and that's their disadvantage. Their big disadvantage of these is they're big and they're heavy. Yes. But they're tank-like.
Well, yeah.
Assuming you get a good one. Don't get a sight mark. Story to follow. So these are tank-like, and there's a million mounts for them. They've been around forever.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the first original aim points came out in like the 80s.
Yeah, and they were also used for competition shooting. So
yeah,
just keep that in mind.
Yeah, so these are tank-like. There's a million mounts for them. They look great on a wide variety of platforms, and they have a nice big field of view, and I'll actually cut into that. So when you look through one of these, you've got a 30mm objective lens here, so you've got a pretty good big field of view. But to kind of balance that out, with some of these, you also have thicker walls around them, which do kind of cut into your field of view as well. So it's pros and cons there, especially when you've got something like this Vortex, which has the battery hanging off the side, it's got the controls hanging off the other side.
And if you want to make it bulkier, they actually have cases that go around these.
Oh, yeah.
So you can make them more rugged, but it adds more bulk to it. So.
Yeah. You can make it look different colors that way too, though, I guess. So,
colors.
hey, if you want to. Now, again, as we mentioned, these come in all kinds of different price points.
Yep.
The ones I would recommend that are some of the cheaper ones, I hate to say it, the G&P ones of these are not bad.
Yeah.
G&Ps, they will fall apart on you eventually. I had one for probably 3 years, and eventually the battery compartment just totally fell apart. The battery compartment was combined with a switch, and it just didn't work anymore. But the G&P ones are not bad. The Vortex ones are obviously really good, but they're also like $180. Then there's Bushnell and Primary Arms both have versions of these that are available for like $60 to $100. So on the cheap end, you got the G&Ps. For just a little more, there's the Primary Arms and the Bushnell. And then for more, there's your Vortex. And then for even more, you're getting into real Aimpoint optics, which are, oh my god, have you ever shot with an Aimpoint?
No.
Real Aimpoints are super awesome.
Nah, I don't know, because there was one on that Fostech, but I don't know if it was Aimpoint or
that was a Trijicon MRO. But I've shot with a real Aimpoint Comp M4. It is like the nicest red dot I've ever shot with, even compared to the Trijicon
it's been out
MRO.
for so long, they had so many time to develop it.
Yeah, and they have like ridiculous battery life. So real Aimpoints are super expensive, but if you're looking for one for a real rifle, oh my god, yes. But yeah, so that's kind of your class with these. Is they're bulky, but they're durable, and they've got a decent field of view, also kind of obstructed in some cases. Million mounts for them. They've been around forever. Can't really go wrong. But the cousin of these is also the larger reflex type sight, like your Seymour.
Right. So on the flip side, staying on kind of more on the higher end, on my high cap here, I have a real Seymour sight. Now, just for for transparency, these are $279 on the cheaper end. So they're up there. They're not cheap. I got a good deal on this one, so I'm not going to complain about it. Now, the great thing about these is that it has a large field of view. You can definitely see, when you look down the sights, you can see left and right, forward, and even a little bit back if you really needed to. Perfect field of view. It has all sorts of different brighten settings. Drawback, if you want them specifically mount them on a rifle, you need a mount. So they have mounts like these that mount them on there and they slide around so you can fit it exactly correct. And on the flip side as well, when you have them, you can't mount them higher or lower. I mean, unless you buy risers.
Separate riser.
Yeah, if you buy risers. And for this one in particular, you're going to need 2 risers, one on the front and one on the back, because they do have, for Picatinny mounts, you have one here on the front and one on the back, and they are really spread out. The closest you'll get is this. So you need 2 mounts in order for them to mount up higher. Now, for pistols, they make a variety of different mounts for them. They have this one, which is a, I believe this one is a 5KU mount, although I'm going to be changing this one up because I'm not a huge fan of this. So UAC makes them, I mean, you look pretty much anywhere. There's a plethora of supply of these Seymour mounts on the airsoft market.
Well, because Seymour's also, they've been around forever, since the 80s,
yeah,
and they made their bread and butter on competition pistols.
Yep, and fantastic sights. If you have the money to drop on that, go for it, because they're fantastic. Now, on the flip end, you can get a cheaper version from Element. Now, these are going to run you about $65. So, I mean, they're going to be on the cheap end, so don't expect Seymour quality. You're looking more along the lines of, like, GMP. So, they'll do the job.
They're not bad, but they'll break eventually.
Yes. That's kind of the takeaway from this, is they'll do the job. It looks great, looks like the Seymour, but it's
Don't put them on a real gun, either. They won't
Definitely
hold zero
not.
at all.
It won't do anything. Now, one of the biggest things that I found was kind of a something to come as an overcome was sighting these guys in, because there are lots of points where you have to unscrew them first before you can even sight it in, because again, the real steel is obviously real for real steel, and it holds at 0, so it has these little mounting points, so when you do adjust it, you can screw it back in so it won't lose its 0.
Well, and the reason for that is actually one of the cons of many reflex type sights is they're unprotected, kind of. So they're on the front,
completely...
and they can be knocked around. Now, the real Seymour and the airsoft ones, to a certain extent, overcome that by having a variety of set screws tensioning the whole thing in place.
Absolutely.
On cheaper reflex sights, like, you know, your NC Stars that you see a lot, if you knock that thing, you can still knock that out of 0.
Oh, yeah. So that's the big drawback from these, that first off, the price, if you want to get a good one, you're going to be spending a lot of money, and they're completely exposed all the way around. If you drop these, you'll most likely break it, because they're not as rugged, unlike the aim points over here, which are huge, like tanks. You can throw them across the room and they'll be fine. These ones, not so much. Also, you have a lot of angles to get shot from, because the glass where it's held in, really open, so you can get shot on multiple angles. So I would really recommend, if you're going to go with a Seymour for either your rifle or a pistol, put some sort of plexiglass sight protector on it, which would help. I mean, I would recommend that for any sight that you spent a lot of money on.
The other thing I want to mention about reflex type sights too is another unique disadvantage they have compared to tube style and sealed style sights is the projector is right here.
Yeah.
That actually projects your red dot. So now on a competition handgun or a high kappa or something like that, not a big deal. If you're like me and you run your guns hard in the mud and the dirt, there is a potential hazard of getting mud in front of your projector. It's usually a pretty simple matter of wiping it off, but it's something to keep in mind.
The nice thing about the Seymours, though, is that you just have 2 screws, you can pull this whole thing out, and you can really do a nice deep clean. That's another great advantage of these Seymours, because they're so modular. There's so many screws that you can take all these things apart and clean them with no hassle. So.
Because again, they've been around forever. They've kind of run into every problem with the system and found a workaround. Now going back to tube style red dots is where we run into micro dots. These are kind of the latest thing that's come out of the,
the most popular right now.
Yeah, of the tactical and competition shooting industry are micro dot sights. The Aimpoint T1 was really kind of the forefather of these. Then Vortex came out with their version, which I think is called the Vortex Spark. Then you've got the Primary Arms version, like I have in my hands. I think that's a...
So this one is a Bravo or B2 style, and then I have another one made by Aim Sports.
Yeah, and then you...
2 different qualities.
Yeah, and then you've got, GMP makes their own offering. There's a million of these.
Yeah, there's tons of clones.
Ever since...
Even Belkin has their own clones.
Ever since the T1 came out, took the market by storm. And then Trijicon just came out with the MRO. We don't have one here because it's expensive. Super nice red dot. We shot with one of those in the Fostech Origin 12 at SHOT Show. Very nice, but expensive. And the advantage of these is kind of you get a lot of the ruggedness and the durability of the larger tube style red dots. I mean, I beat the heck out of these primary arms and my Bushnell red dot too, and you can beat the shit out of these things. They will take some abuse. Then the other advantage is, again, it's a sealed system, so your projector isn't exposed like it is with many reflex sights, and it's relatively simple to zero because you don't have the exposed front end that needs the different set screws to be held in place. Disadvantage of this is the field of view is kind of small.
Yes, very small.
I think this is like a 25 millimeter field of view. Now, the Trijicon MRO actually addresses this a bit. The Trijicon MRO and the clones of it that are starting to come out, I think Hollow Sun is their own version coming out soon. Those actually have a 30 millimeter objective lens, much like these larger traditional tube style sights. So that's kind of going to begin to change maybe. But these do have a smaller field of view than something like the Seymour or the more traditional aim-point style optics. Now you can work around that because I find it very easy when you mount it well to get up on it, and if you're using it with both eyes open, not a huge deal. But a lot of people dislike the T1 and microdot style red dot sights because it's a small field of view, and when you have the battery compartment on the side, the turrets, and the protective housing, it can kind of feel like you're looking through a PVC pipe.
Yeah.
And some people don't like that. I've gotten used to it just because I've used them so much, but it's something to keep in mind when you're looking at that. And then the other disadvantage can be, for some of the good ones, is price.
Yeah.
But I would also argue these have some of the more readily available, what I would call lower-end real steel red dots. These primary arms and Bushnell ones, especially that I use mostly, you can find these on sale for $60 or $70. They usually don't come with a riser mount like this for that kind of money, but the riser mounts aren't that expensive, especially since they're either Aimpoint or RIS compatible. You can go with any kind of mount you want. So I think I got into this red dot for about $90 when it was on sale on Primary Arms website. Still kind of expensive though, which is where you run into the airsoft clones.
Right. What ironically though, this one when it first came out into the market from Bravo or B2, however you know the company, this was $90 as well. It came straight out the gate with for $90, but you got two different mounts. You got a riser, and then you had the little short mount as well. So you get two risers, and you got the sight. So it was not on the cheaper end, but
those have gotten cheaper though.
Yeah, they have definitely gotten cheaper.
Because then once the primary arms ones came out, I mean, it just killed the more expensive airsoft specific ones.
I'll get to that in a moment. So this guy was the same price as this, but this is not real steel compatible. You can't put this on a real steel gun; it'll just shatter. So that's again where the differences come in between mine and his. So like you mentioned, field of view is great. I've had this one for roughly 6 years now. Had no problems. The only kind of slight issue that I had long term is that eventually the zero starts going, and I can't always zero to 100%. So I just have to kind of figure out a way how to make it work. And I'm slowly kind of, eventually I'm going to have to retire this one because it's starting to get so bad that I can't really set it in 100% right now.
It's that same theme, airsoft optics, eventually.
They will die. And you're just going to have to bite the bullet and replace it, which is not terribly expensive since they're so readily on the market. I mean, you have Valken that makes
there's so many.
There's so many out in the market, which brings me into the Aim Sports branded one, which I picked up for $35, I believe. $35, $50. Depends on where you look. I think on eBay it's like $50. But these ones, right out of the box, sight in perfect. Like most airsoft sights, in the first couple months, it'll be no problem. This one has a much brighter dot than my original, and I don't know. Maybe they use different kind of light sensor or whatever the thing they call on the inside, but it's much brighter. They also the other drawback that I noticed about these ones versus my original is the turrets have on the protectors on them have these little dots that you can unscrew and you can immediately already adjust it on the fly, so you don't have to have a screwdriver
like the real
on
aim
you.
point.
Yes. So that's a great detail, which eventually when I have to retire this, and they probably won't come with adjustable turrets like this, I'm just going to put these on the new one because it's so handy just to be able to jump on here and start adjusting on the fly.
You
without
usually
having,
need a flat head or something
usually
like
flat
that.
heads. So that is a great thing I loved about the site, and I really don't want to retire because I love that feature so much. But eventually, I'm going to have to do it. So this is going to be on the cheaper end of the airsoft industry side. Really great site. So if you are, unfortunately, e-bike branded, not a huge fan of that because I hate laser engraving. I just want to be black, but whatever. You can always take that off.
Yeah, mine's got the primary arms branding
But
on the
yours
side.
is
So
real steel. Mine is got an e-bike logo on it. I don't have anything against e-bike. I just don't like branding.
Aw. And then also continuing on the micro dot type of thing, you have micro reflex sights. Like, this is not a real Trijicon RMR.
If it was.
I have shot with real Trijicon RMRs, and they are also very awesome, but also very expensive. This is an Ace 1 Arms RMR replica, and I'm going to start off right now by saying 99% of RMR replicas on the market, complete worthless garbage, and this one is only better by a small margin. So, the Ace 1 Arms RMR is just about fake RMR, is the only decent RMR replica on the market, and I'm using decent loosely. Even still, it is an airsoft branded optic. It will fall apart on you eventually, but it will at least zero correctly and actually have different brightness settings. So, good job on Ace 1 Arms for at least getting the bare minimum basics of a red dot to work. So, with these types of micro red, I mean, there's also Doctor style optics.
NC Star makes their own kind of concoction.
Yeah, there's Doctor style optics. There's Vortex has their own version. The Burris Fast Fire, Leupold has their own version. There's these micro, reflex sights. They have all the same kind of pros and cons as something like the Seymour and the larger reflex sights. Just they're smaller. Another major con of these types of sights, though, is it seems like everyone has their own mounting system. The RMR takes its own mounts. The Burris Fast Fire has its own mounts. There just so many. The Doctor style has its own mounts. There's just so many variants. And if you're trying to put this on a handgun, you need to pray that your handgun has the right mount available. This is a PTS Unity Tactical Atom Slide, which the real Atom Slide from Unity Tactical has all the different inserts you can get for whatever style red dot you want. PTS has only seen fit so far to produce the RMR mount, which is kind of a pain because, like I said, all the airsoft RMRs are hot garbage. So, I'm not mixing words here. I'm just saying it like it is. So PTS, if you're watching this, you're probably not. Make some new mounts, please. These are... airsoft RMRs are terrible. So, continuing onward, these have the same kind of cons as the micro tube sights, the micro dots. These are kind of a limited field of view, especially on something like this RMR, because it's a smaller objective view than a micro dot like a T1 style, and it's got these massive wings on here to try to protect it because it's a reflex sight. This will probably not get knocked off zero as easily, maybe, as some others.
No, you run yours pretty hard. So.
Yeah, who knows? So these are, I mean, it's held up fine, but I haven't really used this thing hard. But if you drop this handgun on this site, it's gonna break. There's no getting around that. Get a good holster. We have a video on that. So,
shameless plug.
Yeah, totally shameless. So yeah, that's kind of the disadvantage of something like this, is it'll work great for handguns, but not much else. I don't know if I would put this as a primary optic on a rifle, just because the field of view is so small and so constricted,
also,
even more than a T1.
It's so tiny. You need a riser on top of a riser just to get up to like at least eye level.
Yeah.
They're so small. The profile on this is so tiny. It's even smaller than the T1s.
Yeah, so these are great for handgun optics. They're great for putting on top of a magnified optic if you're running a magnified optic as your primary.
Or canted.
Exactly. Canted or offset mounting, great. Don't know if I would rely on this as a primary optic on a rifle.
Yeah. And one other disadvantage about slide-mounted optics is if you don't have a good recoil spring system inside your, whatever pistol you're using and your hammer assembly, if you don't have good springs in these and you try to cycle this, it won't cycle 100% because it adds more weight on top of the slide. So you gotta be really, really careful when you do want to put sights on slide-mounted optics like this. you want to have your gun tuned correctly to mitigate that weight on the back of the slide, because it will eventually...
It'll lose gas efficiency, it'll get sluggish, it'll wear out.
And it'll jam just before into battery. And then you have to slap it every time. And the biggest culprit of this is Tokimurui, because they use lighter springs and all their stuff because they use plastic parts.
Yep.
So when you start slapping on heavy metal, or not heavy metal, but you put metal slides
Heavy metal!
on, you start putting metal slides on these, and on top of that you want to, like, that Costa RMR kind of look to it. You really want to upgrade to make sure. Most of you guys already know that, but for those of you who don't, you want to be really, really careful. Even if you have like a Timberwolf or something like that, and you find that they do have an optic ready kind of racker that has 20 millimeter rail mounts on it.
Yeah.
And you can slap, a little red dot from NC Star or whatever on there. You still got to be careful because it adds weight. So you got to be really, really, really cautious. Make sure your gun is tuned to handle that extra weight.
Exactly. Whereas that's not an issue with a frame-mounted red dot like this.
Yeah, if you have them frame-mounted like my High Kappa here or my Glock on the same note, I have no problem because it's just the...
Nothing's impeding the slide.
Nope. So that's fantastic. I would actually opt for that before I would put a red dot mounted slide on my pistols, because frame-mounted 100% better, because you can still add things like different sights, and or if in case your optic goes down. Not on his so much because he does have those raised... optics on the front
suppressor
here.
sights.
Yeah, so he doesn't have a raise, so he doesn't have the issue, but some of you might run into that issue.
Depends on your gun.
Right.
One thing noticeably absent from here, we have no holographic sights.
Right. Those are like... The airsoft ones are more reflex than they are...
Because they're not real holographic.
Right.
They're basically just reflex sights reversed. So
much.
all the normal pros and cons apply.
Yep.
Some of them are kind of spotty quality. Some of them are actually pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't put any of them on a real rifle. Real EOTechs are very expensive.
Yeah.
Real EOTechs are very expensive. Vortex has their own hollow sight coming out now, also very expensive. But they're kind of chunky in many cases.
Very
they're kind of
heavy.
heavy. They have a great field of view. And in terms of shootability, shooting with an EOTech, again, I have some personal experience shooting real weapons with an EOTech. Very, very nice optics to shoot with. There are some things about temperature extremes with EOTechs and they're shifting zero. I'm a civilian. I never ran into any of that.
Oh, you're not in the sandbox?
Yeah, no, I'm not in the sandbox. I'm a civilian. I didn't run into any of those problems, so take that for what it's worth. Right. There are very nice optics for shooting, though. Would I put one on an airsoft gun? It's a lot of money.
And a lot of weight. And you like being, quick on your feet as well, and you like being kind of low pro as well.
Yeah.
And just the chunkiness of the sight is kind of...
Yeah.
A lot of people put them because, that's what
they do look cool, and it is, and if you're going for an impression. So yeah, I mean, I understand, but for me personally, I just don't much care for them. I'd rather get, because for the money that some of the replica EOTechs go for too, I could get a primary arms.
Or two.
Yeah, or in some cases too. So for me, I just would rather spend my money other ways.
Right.
Is there anything wrong with them if you like them?
Not at all.
Not really. Again, most of the airsoft replicas have the classic airsoft replica problems. They'll fall apart eventually. Some of them sooner than others. But
glasses will fall out.
Yeah, it's...
I've seen glass fall out. Just playing airsoft. Like, that's not good.
Yeah, and that depends on the ones, too. Like the G&P EOTechs...
If you can find them.
If you can find them. Those were pretty decent. Yep. The biggest thing I would say with those is the electronics would fail, or the threading where you would zero them would fail. Yep. Then the Hurricane EOTechs were actually pretty good, but good luck finding those anymore. Yeah. Again, same issue with those would be the electronics reliability, but if you're handy with repairing, in many cases they can be repaired. But it's what you get when you buy a replica airsoft optic. It's cheaper.
Right.
All right, so I think as closing thoughts, my personal favorite optics are these tube-style red dots, just because I beat the crap out of my stuff so much that I like having that extra ruggedness and durability. I usually only use a larger tube-style optic if it's on like an LMG or something, just because I usually like to keep myself lighter with these T1s. I just find, T1 style microdots, I usually just find they work better for me. What about you?
Well, I've kind of limited use on my Seymour, but I love the look of it. That's more because that's what 90% airsoft is.
Oh, absolutely. We're not debating
but
that.
On top of the fact that it's a real Seymour and it just looks and completes the gun, I love it, and I love the huge field of view. That's my biggest thing when it comes to optics on pistols is I want a large field of view, and that's why the reflex are the best option for that. I do have a T1 on here because I like the T1 Glock look. Or sorry, clock. I don't want to get in trouble with Glock here. But I like that look because it just adds a little flavor. But I've used T1s on all across board on my rifles, on my pistols. I use them all across board, so I'm used to just like Eric. I like them. And that's my personal preference. I only have 2 different types of sights.
Although I'm excited for more MRO style optics coming out, because I do like the larger objective lens of the MRO. Other than that, though, I think that basically covers all the major categories of red dot.
Yep.
I hope maybe as you're shopping for your red dot, we helped you out.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
All right, guys, this has been another episode of SpeedSim. Once again, my name is Andre.
And I'm E-House.
And thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.